Hi, everyone. So we're back for part two of our Let's Talk Fast and Furious. And again, I'm back with KB, Jonesy, and Brandon. And we have a new panelist, Joseph Malozzi. And I would like Joseph to just introduce himself a bit before we get into our questions for this second half.
Well, hey, I'm Joseph Malazzi, executive producer and writer on the Stargate franchise, Dark Matter, a show called Utopia Falls for Hulu. Big K-pop fan. That's how we know each other. And as of last week, a big fan of the Fast and the Furious series.
Yes, Joseph is he's new to the franchise, which is one of the reasons I asked him because I thought it would be fun to have like someone who hasn't been there all throughout the years and has gotten just like dived right in because he just binge watched all of them kind of like I did and he got right in. He was like, "What?"
Yeah, exactly. I did a friend's podcast. JL called in. He does like a great Trump impression. He's a hilarious comedian. I did his podcast to convince him to watch Fast and Furious, to give it a shot. He was like, "Yeah, but it just seems so crazy." I'm like, "Dude, that's what's so amazing about it. It's so absurd."
The craziness is the point. Like, embrace it.
It's a telenovela. It's fantastic.
Exactly. It's like I can't even say it's like a Korean drama. Only the really, you know what? More like a J drama. Those ones they really reach for the stars with the J dramas.
But it didn't start off crazy though. It's become super crazy.
Well, yeah, when you think about them starting boosting DVD players and like just racing for $2,000 to getting millions of dollars from a Brazilian drug lord, yeah, you're gonna be like, okay.
And trashing cars that the government and taxpayers are paying for, like nothing, crumbling $1 million cars like they're cans. You gotta love it. You gotta love the bodaciousness and the audacity of it all.
They are terrorists, right?
To be fair, I mean, technically those cars are never going back to their owners and they're just in custody. So
yeah, some of them are that's one thing I do like about F8 where they made sure to mention that the cars they use are repossessed cars. So like that's not money out of the taxpayer's pocket. But the ones before, like Brian when he was in F2 and in F1, those cars all belong to the government. Like those cars are all paid for by taxpayers.
And you know, Brian belongs to the government too, which we'll talk about. But,
we'll get into him. I think
the government. I mean, our tax-paying dollars are going to repairing the damage that these fools are doing in the cities, like they're Batman going through Gotham City.
Except Batman can afford to foot the bill.
Exactly. I mean, right?
Actually, Gotham has specific insurance for Batman. They really do.
They probably do. They probably got some special clause in their tax.
No, I'm being dead serious. That's the thing.
Oh, really?
That makes sense.
Yes. That makes sense. So actually this is kind of the perfect segue for my first question. So what is it about the franchise that has created an almost cult following? So like we talked, like Joseph, I want to start with you since you are new. You're like brand spanking new to the franchise. What is it about you that made you were like, I am here for the long haul?
You know, to be honest with you, I was going to be here for the long haul because you asked me to be here for the long haul. So I was going to watch them anyways. And to be honest with you, I put off watching these movies for the longest time because I thought, it's car racing. But I was so surprised by the first movie. And what kept me, I guess, enjoying the series, besides kind of the craziness, is the fact that it has something similar with a lot of great sci-fi, which is basically something I work in. And it's this idea of family. And it's very obvious, you know, and they hit it again and again, you know, thematically, the idea that, you know, whether it's a crew, the Enterprise or Team SG-1 going through the Stargate or Dom's crew, they are family. And, you know, it's something that I think executives tend to overlook, but fans don't. And I think they love it. It's like they're checking in with their adoptive family, if you will. And that's what I think it is.
And Jonesy?
So I'm going to concur. I'm going to concur with Joe. I think the thing that sticks out to me is the fact that I think what all of us relate to is that life is mostly about the family that you make. And so that's what this very much is, right? This is a ragtag crew of people that have found each other throughout the course of life, just like we do. And so as crazy as the franchise gets, these are all still people that have just bumped into each other. And then I think in the first one, Mia said Dom is like gravity. And so he has that charisma and gravitas that brings everybody, he's the core of the crew. And he is allowed to be that straight man and everybody else can be who they are around him. And we get to watch that and enjoy that. And so that, at least in my opinion, is the thing that draws folks in.
And then KB, and then Brandon C.
Yeah, you asked this question, like a similar question in part one, and I said family. So Joseph is someone after my own heart as a newbie who understands the foundation of this franchise clearly is family. But I also think it's just, and I said this before, the relatability of the characters. Like there is a character for everyone. And then I also like how everything expands and touches on each other. So yes, Dom has, the majority of the crew is made up of Dom's chosen family, per Jonesy's point. Like, they're not related by blood, but he's chosen them to be in his family and in his orbit. And as the heart of the group and the center of the group, these are the people that he trusts the most with his life and his actual blood family's lives, right? So you love that, but also like we talked about Shaw, right? And so we see the Shaws throughout the series as well, and they're connected. We have Han and Han's connected. Like we just have, it's such a wide-reaching, I feel like, franchise, but I love the fact that they each make sure that there's a tie, that there's a connection, that there's a layer that doesn't go unattached, if that makes sense. And so I think fans really respond to that as well, because as the storylines move through these particular like 9 films plus the additional films that cross paths and go along the way, that you're going to see some of your favorites, and they can pull from anywhere in the universe and drop some of your favorites in this film, and you're still going to be invested and intrigued in those storylines. So
yeah, I mean, I think the cast, I think the main cast is what really has driven this to cult classic status, just because, like I said, when they introduced The Rock and then started bringing in people from previous movies and like doing the heist stuff, that, just going to different locations internationally, I think that really took this franchise to another level. I also appreciate the surprises. Like they always are able to surprise me at least once in each movie. And that's really, really hard to do in sequels that could feel easily redundant and they just do the same thing over and over. It's literally like Ben Diesel's in a room with like a bunch of producers and scientists and like, what can we do next that's absurd, but also like would be really cool in a car? Mm-hmm. And I think that's why people keep going back to it.
Yeah.
Can I toss in one more thing? I think there's an authenticity to it as well. So that Paul Walker became really into cars because of this franchise, and that starts to shine through his enjoyment, his enthusiasm for it. Same thing for his son King. All of these people, because of this franchise, really became car enthusiasts, and so a lot of that also comes through on the screen. And that's I think one of the other things that helps a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of you completely. Like family is the heart of it, and like we joke about it. We were like, it's family, but like it really does. It really does sell it, because you become invested in these characters and you care about them. And like even going back to mentioning Tokyo Drift, the thing, like one of the reasons, like because you gotta hand this over to Sung Kang, because he played that character so excellently. Like people connected to him instantly, and there was such an outcry from the fandom after Tokyo Drift. People were like, you can't bring back you can't just kill this amazing character off. You can't tell us that he has a history with Dom and we not get to see it. And they swung the trajectory of the entire franchise because of that. Because they knew they had to bring back Han. Like their plans for the franchise forever changed completely. And I think that's amazing, because that's one of the things I think have people invested into, because it shows that they do value the fandom's input. They value our opinions, and they do fan service really well. But I think they do it respectfully in the fact that they don't do things that wouldn't be typically auto characteristic for the characters majority of the time, excluding what happened with Shaw. But what I mean is, like, they don't do things that would be too outlandish. You know what I mean? Like they don't like turn the Darth Vader. Anyway, I'm not gonna talk about Star Wars, but they do fan service really well, and they do add the heart. And even if the plots are pretty kind of basic, they do give us enough heart in it and that you care about it, and then the actors, they've grown to love this franchise themselves so much that it helps us be invested in, because there's like when you like sometimes you see interviews with actors and you can tell like they were just there for the paycheck, but with these actors, like they all care about each other, they care about the franchise, they care about the fandom, so like that helps us to connect with them more. And then like for a lot of us, like if you're my age, 37, like that you started at when you would have left, like for me secondary school, for you guys like high school or even in college, and we kind of grew up with these characters. When you watch F8, and then I saw some clips from F9, I'm like, you can see the age in it, and I'm like, I feel like I grew up with these people. I feel like I connect to them up with that age too, and like they mature and they had families and kids and had like major life events that happened even in the times that we in the spaces that we didn't get to see. And I think that's really important for a franchise like this. Like this franchise is 20 years old, right? 2001, this franchise came out. This year is 2021, and we've seen this franchise grow from like just a simple car racing film, like a simple heist film, into like these men shooting off into space. And like, who would have thunk it? But here we are, 20 years later. They have longevity that other franchises, that other films that were like, if we talk about the Italian Job, I'm sure they probably have plans of, maybe we might do a second one. They did not. People doubted Fast and Furious, but look where Fast and Furious is too. The only other franchise that has this amount of longevity is what? The MCU. Not even the DCEU. Look what's happening. They're crumbling all over the place. But hopefully they get their shit together someday. But right now we only have the MCU and the Fast and the Furious. Like, what? That's amazing.
We got the Flash coming.
Yeah.
But will it be good? But will it be good?
I mean, we gotta have faith, man. Because I'm looking for Batman Beyond with Michael Keaton. Come on, give me what I want.
The only reason I'm excited for that is about Michael Keaton, but DC.
Well, we'll see. And so my next question is, what are your thoughts on the racial, gender, and ethnic diversity of the cast and characters, main, supporting, and even background? So like all the people. And I'll share my thoughts after as usual. So we'll start again with Joseph.
Oh, I was gonna say, can you say it again? What your question was?
Oh, sorry, did I talk too fast? My bad. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the racial, gender, and ethnic diversity of the cast? This is going mainly not only from main and supporting, but also the background characters too, which I think plays a very important part in the franchise. Especially, I think if you're gonna look at from 1 to 3, like community was actually a very big part of those films as well. So, Joseph, you can go first.
Yeah, I know. I think they do a really good job in that it's a very diverse cast, but everyone contributes in their own unique way. And it's funny. I think Kay, you mentioned the fact that Letty says I think Dom is the center of the gravity, but I find the relationship between Roman and Tej almost kind of the heart of the relationship, and it's really weird, and I don't know what it is, but there's that moment in which one is it where they're in Dubai, where Roman improvises that whole like Jasmine's birthday party, and Tej is listening in on him, is like, he's not doing the birthday party gag again. The fact that these two guys know each other so well, it's just kind of so heartening and makes them so real, which is why I kind of said, they're talking about spin-offs, and I was like, the spin-off I really want to see is Roman, Ramsey, Tej. But I heard that they're talking about doing a Cypher spin-off, which is outrageous to me, because I think she is the actual worst villain across any franchise I've ever watched. She just kind of pontificates. She's boring. She's just completely flat. I know they try to make her this big mastermind, but I think I'm not going to swear because I don't know if you can swear on the show.
No F-bombs.
Yes, no F-bomb. But I think she's a terrible, terrible character. Just flat and totally uninteresting. And she doesn't deserve her own spinoff.
She isn't really a character, right?
Out of all the villains ever, yes. Wow.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, like the big the big franchises. Yeah,
that's wild because I thought that about John Cena.
Well, you know, I didn't see him as really the big bad because there's always that turn. He was not my favorite either, but I thought that she was just not
Carolyn.
So John Cena was literally a wrestler though, right? Like he did the heel face turn. And so that's kind of the thing that made it really funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
See, I thought it was like unintentionally funny. Like there's that scene, you know, where he's staring out, like, you know, at Dom. And I remember the whole theater, I saw it twice. And the theater's just dying laughing. I'm like, I don't think that's Justin Lin and Vin Diesel's intention with this.
No, I mean, here's the deal. John Cena is not a good actor. They went out and they were like, hey, how do we replace The Rock? Let's get John Cena. And John Cena's okay. You know, I was actually really worried having seen Bumblebee and then walking into this. And I think that he did better. But I think the things that I liked about John Cena were really bolstered by the flashbacks. And so that gave gravitas to the things that he did. And I really, really, really liked those flashback scenes. So I think that he was really helped out in his acting by what they did to set up his character.
In regards to racial diversity and everything, I always appreciate that a lot of folks in the cast are racially ambiguous, at least their characters are. Because I still don't really know what a Toretto is. Because based on F9, I'm like, is he Dominican? Man, is he half black? What is going on? Is he Brazilian?
I hated that explanation in this movie. So, Carolyn, for you, they did this scene where Cypher had to explain John Cena's physical appearance. She was like, "Oh, I never expected Nordic blood." It's like, as ridiculous as this franchise is, like, this is the thing you feel like you need to explain, like this right here, his distinguished Nordic channel. Like, okay, sure.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you don't see a blockbuster with this kind of diversity except for like the Marvel films, right?
Yeah.
And so I've always appreciated that. I also appreciate the locations and the music. It's always had a good variety of music. I remember this introduced me to Baldaneros. I'm butchering the name of the song. It's at the end of Tokyo Drift. And I remember being like, yo, this song is fire. Like, and I never was into reggaeton.
So that soundtrack.
Yeah, I think that this franchise introduced me to a lot of different things culturally and a lot of people.
Yeah, it's true. And then like you talked about Tokyo Drift, there's also, I think, this song that I was singing before. The literal song title for it is Tokyo Drift, and the group's name is Teriyaki Boys. And like the film has a banging soundtrack. Like every song is a bop. That one and 5, because like we had like the reggaeton and the thing at the end of 5, you know, like that sounds like, I gotta look at it. Like, KB, you go ahead. I'm gonna look up that song because that song.
Is that the song? That's how we roll. We roll like this.
Is it that one? No, KB, you go ahead. I'm gonna look for the name of the song.
So in terms of, you know, kind of the diversity, yes, I definitely feel like they are a diverse group of characters. But to Brandon Collins' point, I feel like in 9, my point of contention really is that you cannot convince me that John Cena and Vin Diesel are brothers. Like,
well, look at his real brother.
But also just as how it's not based on looks, because I know how genetics works. I'm a scientist, but I feel like just based on the fact that Vin is actually multiracial and John Cena is not. Like it's just like, I just feel like we could have gotten a big name who is also multiracial to put in there. Like that's my only point of contention. Like you could still find someone. And also, to your point, Josie, you said this man can't even act. So like literally, what is the draw? He can't act and he's not multiracial to fit and you didn't even like his, you know, like tie-in terms of her one-liner, which was, I feel like, strategically put there because the fans are constantly asking, who are the Torettos? Like they just don't know. So I feel like she had to say that. But there's also a line in Fast 9 where one of the characters says, I thought I noticed a resemblance. And like, y'all, you did not notice a resemblance. Like, yes. Well, I was trying not to spoil it. it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
It's okay. Go ahead. It's like, okay, but also we're just grasping for straws now because Vin Diesel also looks nothing like John Cena. Like that also is just like, they don't have to look alike to be siblings. Like there are lots of siblings who do not look alike. So why did she say that? She was like, oh, this is such a close family resemblance. Like, it's not though. Like,
They were just
and
trying to
that's
convince
also
them.
okay. Yes. And I was
They were
like,
trying to convince
y'all
you.
cannot convince me. Like,
Yeah, if you
honestly,
say
you
it
can't
enough, we'll
convince me
believe
from
it.
that. Yeah. So I just feel like that's probably the biggest thing. You know, I feel like at least, you know, Ben has mentioned that there is some Latinx, there's some Black, there's some, you know, like in his background. And we all know that Mia Jordana is also half Latinx. So like, okay, the father in Fast 9 is clearly Latinx. So, you know, it's just like, we're like, okay, I just feel like they could have cast an actor.
Is it weird? Is it like a Disney movie that we don't see the mother? Is that what this is?
I feel
Like
my wife
movie?
thinks
I don't know. I
she's
feel
gonna come
like
in the 10th.
I do too. I feel like by the time we get to the end, we're gonna see the mom, and I kind of also feel like, to Brandon's point, maybe that's why they're kind of keeping it ambiguous, is because they don't know who they're gonna cast as the mom, and so. But I think kind of like adding. She could be the mother.
I mean, that could be
honestly,
amazing. Though.
At this point, she could be the mother. Like, truly, truly, it could be her. So, I mean, I was about to say, you know, with them throwing John Cena in there, then yeah, probably won't be Viola. But I guess we're gonna see what happens.
We're gonna go more European route. I get what you're saying.
Well, she said Nordic, so we'll see. Okay, so just before I get my thoughts, so the song from the end of Fast and Furious is Danza Kuduro by Don Omar featuring Lucento.
Oh,
that song is a bop. Okay, that is a banger. All of the songs
Great
from
song.
like they're all great. But my thoughts on talking about the race and gender. One thing I do that's one of the big draws for me too is that has so many different, not only races but ethnicities, and it's important that we do have, like, you have Black people, but you have Black people of different ethnicity. Like you have Afro Latinx, you have Asians, you have white, you have, you know, and that's important. And I think especially the first three films really excelled at that, because when we saw like the groups of the drivers, we saw like all of those groups were always like multiracial groups. And then like we went to the Middle East with Abu Dhabi with and that was 6 where they did the car hopping. So then we got some Middle Eastern flavor up in there. And so like so that's one thing I do appreciate it. But the one thing that I don't appreciate is we don't really get any dark skinned Black women. Fix that in F10, please.
100%.
Fix it.
100%
That's why I said
agree.
Viola.
Right. As the mom.
Real quick to the female characters, though, I will say I do think the screenwriters need to step it up a little bit.
Yeah,
and write some better scenes. Like they'll just throw them in a random generic fight scene and stuff like that. Give them actually something to work with, because these are talented actresses. Michelle Rodriguez is a beast of an actress. Like, give her stuff to do, right? And so I do think that's a growth area for the franchise.
Definitely. Oh, for sure. That's always been.
I will say.
Oh no, sorry. I was gonna say that's always been the weakest area of the films is the writing for the women. Like poor Mia, she's always damsel in constant distress, or she's never there. Either she's
where is she?
And now she's a hacker.
If she's not in need of help, she's like somewhere in the background making chicken tuna fish sandwiches or looking after baby Brian or baby Jack. And even for me, like you mentioned Michelle Rodriguez, like she is a fantastic actress. Like we got some of that in F5 when she and Dominic got back together, getting back together. We had that whole angst of her losing her memory and coming back and finding her memory. Yes, chicken and tuna sandwiches. But that's where we got to see some of her acting chops. And I'm like, we need more of these women getting more dramatic roles, more scenes, because they don't get as much scenes with the men. And they don't get as much scenes together. I am trying to remember how many there's not, because when I binge watched, I was taking notes and I'm like, these women actually don't get that much scenes together, and they would fail the Bechdel test in the fact that all of their discussions are about the men in their lives.
And so some of that was what Michelle Rodriguez's complaint was for this movie, right? So there was a long period of time where she was talking about she wasn't going to come back unless they fixed some of that. And that's one of the reasons why they did bring back Mia for this movie, because of what she was saying.
And I will say in Fast 9, there is, I believe, a compelling character that is part of Han's journey that I would like to see more of moving forward, that also gets to do more.
Well, I thought like that's why the Cypher news throws me off so much, because I could have sworn Michelle Rodriguez and then we're talking about a spin-off movie with their characters, with those people.
With Letty and
with Letty, Mia, and the new character that you're hinting at, KB. Like, so I'm very confused why they're now pivoting and focusing on Charlize, which either that means that they're setting her up to be connected either to the family or maybe even that organization that Idris was working for in Hobbs and Shaw. Like there's some other stuff going on that's connected to everything.
But I don't know how they make her. I mean, like I said, I mean, I saw the article the other day, but I don't know how they make her, you know, the driving force in a spin-off. I mean, it's not like in the case of Deckard, it felt forced, to be honest with you. And as much as I loved Hobbs and Shaw, it didn't really feel like a movie in this franchise. Whereas
with
Cypher,
those cars, that didn't feel like it when they were doing the hooking of the cars as they're speeding down the street.
There wasn't enough of it, I felt. But Cypher did some terrible, terrible things. I mean, Deckard did as well. I mean, he did kind of kill Han, maybe, but she did some terrible things, and I don't know how she.
There's no redemption for her. Like I loved me some Jason Statham, so I'm willing to have them bring back to have them keep him in the franchise, because whatever the explanation they're going for the reason why Han came back, I'll buy that. But Cypher, no. She killed Elena in front of Dom. She killed him. She killed her with her baby 10 feet away. There ain't no redemption for that. Nah. I don't want no redemption arc. I don't want any spin-off where she's the anti-hero. Nah, she needs to die. She should have gotten caught in that propeller when she flew out that way in that plane. That's how she should have died.
That is...
She should have been propeller. Okay? So my next question is, who else cried? I did when Han died, and what were your theories for why he didn't die? So like I talked a bit about my theory before, so I'll let you guys go first again. Joseph, if you go first again.
I came to the series late, so I was already aware that Han was being resurrected. So really, I went into it with more curiosity. I was like, how are they going to kill him off? And then I saw it, I watched it, and then I was like, well, it's impossible. And then they add on the layer of Shaw being responsible, which didn't make sense because the Lucas Black character was standing right there and would have seen it. So it's kind of a revisionist history. And then it's a classic case where they I guess underestimated the character or the audience's love for the character, and they have to go back and undo it. And I've done it in science fiction, but I work in science fiction. It's a lot easier to work with clones and alternate realities in science fiction. Whereas in this series, you know, it's somewhat, you know, more grounded in reality. I guess that's arguable. So I kind of don't buy it. But at the other hand, like you, I love the characters, so I'm willing to give them some leeway.
I didn't cry when Han died, especially at the end of Tokyo Drift, because I just gotten to know the character. I get emotional when I watch the end of Fast 7. I'm not the biggest fan of that movie, but that ending, that tribute to Paul Walker, gets me all the time, especially with that damn Wiz Khalifa song. But I will say, going back to the Han story, I think the thing that people really appreciate about Han that we don't talk about is that he is the glue to everything. He's connected to every single character in the series. So he's that bridge from Tokyo Drift to the sequels or / prequels, right? And I think that was also a cool thing where people were like, oh, snap, Tokyo Drift is technically a sequel to Fast 4, 5, and 6. That's crazy. And that only happens if you get, you know, Tokyo Drift, if you get characters that you really appreciate. There's a reason why Han's been in all of the movies instead of Bow Wow and Jason Tobin, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would say that I definitely did not cry when Han died. In fact, the only time I have cried is that darn Paul Walker tribute. Like literally every time. It doesn't matter where I'm at. Also, it could just be playing in the background and the tears will start flowing as soon as I hear the song. Yeah. So that's probably the only thing that I've cried about. So oddly enough, when I saw the trailer and Han was back, I actually didn't theorize anything. And to Joseph's point, I think that like my thought process was, oh, like they'll probably use a clone, like this probably isn't actually Han type scenario. But other than that, I wasn't really like leaning too much into it. I was just like, oh, that's probably not really him, because, you know, why would you, like I said in the first part, why would you reveal this in the trailer? Like, and then, you know, this is kind of a huge thing. Why would you spoil it in this trailer right before? But turns out I was wrong. And so, you know, my idea of like, oh, it's probably just a clone. And also I was thinking, I think I probably also was thinking either a clone or it just wasn't him, someone who did a face swap. But also I was thinking that it wouldn't be permanent, I guess is the best way to put it too. Like I kind of remember thinking like, oh, I don't know if this will last long term. But now I know in the Fast franchise that anything is possible. So,
KB, hang on. So
I think
if you think it's someone else in the car, then basically Mr. Nobody killed,
someone else.
sacrificed someone.
Somebody else. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Well, I have a theory that Mr. Nobody is the big bad, the secret big bad
that would be cool.
I mean,
that would be
honest,
awesome.
I don't know why he isn't though. And so I feel like, to Joseph's point, like how you feel about Cypher, I feel like all of the points that you make about Cypher would be rectified by having Mr. Nobody be the big bad. You know what I mean? Like, because I think that like he's a more compelling character. Again, to Carolyn's point, these films definitely fail the Bechdel test, because we could have also made just, a female version of Mr. Nobody and had like another, a compelling woman villain, but we don't. But since we don't have that, I agree that like Mr. Nobody is the best villain out of the whole series. To be honest, because they just keep making all of the other villains empathetic. Like
Heroes,
they're like, oh, well, actually, they have family, so they're not really a villain.
Save the baby.
So I think
that's not enough. He didn't even apologize.
I had the theory that I had going into this last movie was, and I think this was, I can't tell if this was deliberate. So coming out of Hobbs and Shaw, as soon as you see what they do to Idris Elba in that movie, you're like, well, that has to be what they did to Han to bring him back. Because again, like Joe pointed out and other people have pointed out, he was right next to the car when it exploded. Han was in the vehicle when it exploded. So there's no way. It's almost like in Misery, when she's talking about when the car goes over the cliff. And you're like, how does the person get out of the car? And you come back next week and there's a scene inserted where the person jumps out. And she's like, that's not what happened. That's not the scene. That was basically this. And so I get that we love the character and we have to suspend our disbelief more than we normally do to get this going. But I do think that what they did in Hobbs and Shaw, at least for me, and I know a couple of other people, really set us up for a fail. Because there was an expectation, like now that we've got nanotechnology and all this other stuff that can bring people basically back from the dead, that would be what they did.
But as you pointed out, he was in the cockadoodle car, to quote what's her name from Misery, and they do cut away to him. I think he's almost at the scene with Mr. Nobody, isn't he? When they're telling the story. So basically, he's definitely not in the car. So someone else was in the car. So to KB's point, whether it's a clone or some poor sap that they set up, I don't know.
You've reached the life model decoy of Han Solo.
And I feel like with Mr. Nobody, he doesn't actually care about casualties. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was just someone else who he intended on getting rid of anyway.
Well, the Mr. Nobody reveal,
like a great villain.
The Mr. Nobody reveal with Han is why I think that Giselle is definitely coming back. Because of all the stuff that they.
But can they? But they would have to recast her, because I don't think people would accept Gal Gadot back in the franchise now.
Wow, because of her comments and stuff, her political comments.
Yes, what she said about Palestine. But anywho, we getting.
Oh no.
But what I now that you mention it, Mr. Nobody actually makes being perfect sense as being the big baddie of the franchise, because it's kind of like MCU where we have Hydra we have like individual villains, but Hydra is the main responsible, the main villain, and how all of these villains come to be. And Mr. Nobody would make sense because he's the government, he's the man. The government is always the big bad.
This is every video game that
he's been manipulating them all of this time to get the tech and get rid of their opponents who trying. That's my theory. That's the theory now.
It's half of every video game you've ever played, right? Where the person that has been guiding you along turns out to be the main villain.
Yep, he's just been dropping little clues to manipulate you and get you to play, thinking that you have choice, but you really don't, because he's been making all the clues there. This kind of reminds me of something that I read recently, but I digress.
Your fan fiction?
No. I think it's, oh my god, it was a Korean film that I watched recently. Or was it a drama? I think it was a drama, but anywho. So my next question is, so this is kind of like, I'm gonna combine the last two questions, which is like, what is your favorite stunt And for mine is like the one where in Abu Dhabi where they do the car hop, and also 5 where the bank heist. But then considering all of the crazy stunts that we've seen, especially the ones in F9, I haven't seen all of them. I don't know all of them, but I know what happens. Is there a point where you think that the Fast and Furious could just be like, you're like, no, this is you guys reaching just a bit too far, or is there no limit? There's no sky is not the limit when it comes to Fast and Furious. Is there nothing that they can't do?
The Rock pushed the torpedo with his bare hands. Like,
literally, no gloves. You weren't even wearing gloves.
You are nothing. How hot do those things get?
Right. Like,
so
I'm
crazy.
like, you were doing nothing. Just said, oh, let me reach out and touch this torpedo.
So they were getting chased by a boat, like a submarine, you know. But I will say, if they try to do this Jurassic World crossover thing, I'm out. Like that, just I don't know about anyone else, but Fallen Kingdom is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
You don't want any dinosaurs?
I don't want those dinosaurs. I don't want that storytelling because, again, Fallen Kingdom is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan. I've seen that movie 50 times, and I had my head in my hands when I saw Fallen Kingdom. So the idea of mixing Dom with that crew, I'm like, no, I'm good.
I've never seen a movie start out so well and then just fall off.
Yes,
like I love the beginning of that movie, and it's just like the rest of it's complete trash.
But the reason I wouldn't want dinosaurs because these is a whole bunch of people of color. We know what happens to the people of color in these kind of in horror movies.
Oh yeah, we don't even get death scenes. We could just arms popping out on people. Like
No, we don't need T-Rexes snatching into people of color.
You just T-Rex just taking off a limb and just saying hey, and then figuring it out after that. No.
Why wouldn't they do a Armageddon though with cars? Like I feel like that's the perfect story.
That's where they're going. I'm calling the next one.
They're going to save the world from a comet or something. Like
they're going to Mars, or they're going to go to the International Space Station.
So, Carolyn, I want to bring it back to your question. Because one of your comments when you asked this question in chat was, why isn't it the Abu Dhabi scene? So I will say that Fast 7 is the one that I have watched, or Furious 7 is the one that I've watched the least, because it is the one where you can see the face replacements and the times that they did stand-ins for Paul Walker. And that's hard to watch. And so that scene, specifically the ones you're talking about where they go across the towers, immediately after they land, Dom looks at Brian and you can see that they did face. And so I don't want to see that. For me, it's 6. That whole drive, it's a tie actually. 6 to me has my favorite stunts. It's a tie between the airplane on the longest runway ever in history and the scene with the tank. I love both of those stunts, and to me, I really enjoy it. And to your second question about can they go too far, I actually feel like this movie 9 they did. This is the one, while I like the emotional stuff that they did, to me it has the weakest action. And I feel like to make it more impactful, I want them to pull it back and go more practical, because this was just too over the top.
They also use the same trope with the magnets several times, whereas in past sequels they've won up that one stunt, right? And towards the second act they keep using the same thing, which is cool visually, but at a certain point you're like, oh, I know where this is going. Got it.
Right.
Yeah, I would say, I think for me, the bank vault chase scene is probably one of my favorites, just because I think it's so ridiculous. And I love everything about it. But in terms of where it's going, now that we've gone to space, honestly, I don't know. I just feel like I don't necessarily agree with you, Carolyn, in the sense that we're going to go back to space. Like, I feel like now that they've done it, they're probably like, okay, check that off. But I do think that, like, in the final 2, it has to be something extraordinary. But I don't know what that is. Like, at this point, I feel like beyond bringing back some of our personal faves, I don't know where else we could go.
We haven't gone to the depths of the ocean, though. They have not gone
that's true.
to the Marianas Trench.
But I wonder if they go too far. It's like the classic Indiana Jones. Like, that first movie was so good because you start off with this crazy action sequence, and then you have time to decompress and you kind of ramp up to the rest of the adventure. But then the Temple of Doom was from start to finish just at 11, so much so that it just become too much. And that's how I felt with 9. Like for me, having said that, my favorite, I agree with you, but like my favorite stunt is that vault scene, because it's crazy, and yet it's theoretically, I guess, kind of plausible. And it's a first step in the franchise that takes it to that crazy, moment. And then the other stunt for me is, I think it's an 8. Was that the one where basically they're on the ice? And Roman's car, Roman's car goes underwater. And it was the only time like I was watching that, the franchise, and I was like, oh crap, how are they going to get out of that one? And Ludacris is like, hold on to your door. And basically he yanks the door and Roman out from underneath the icy depths. And he's like, kind of tobogganing or sliding on the ice behind the car that's being, on the door that's being dragged along. And I just, I love that stunt. That was actually kind of fun.
That scene, listen, these stunts are crazy. Like as I said at the beginning, like one of the reasons I love this franchise is how bombastic and bodacious they get with the stunts. Like the team, they're like, how are we gonna one up ourselves? But I do love practical effects, and one of the reasons I do love the vault scene is because it is plausible. To me, it is out of all of the stunts the most practical and the most plausible physically and physically, as in fact, like it doesn't defy all the laws of physics. Though if you're gonna talk about traction, yeah, they should have like been stopped one time. But that's the one I love because it's also the first one where I think they didn't try to be too much. They were trying to stay in the realm of possibility for the objective they had, which was, it's a bank heist. We're gonna center everything around this bank heist, and our legit bank, they heisted the bank. Like if they had took the entire building down, I would have bought that too. I'm like, they're like, we're gonna steal the whole bank.
We're just gonna drag the entire bank along with us.
I'm sure I would not doubt it if that was actually an idea. Someone was like, you know what, let's push that one aside and just stick with it.
Well, maybe that's where they go, dragging full buildings in this two-parter of a finale. Like
you never know. Like that is actual thing where you can.
They're gonna drag the Coliseum. Maybe that's where.
Or the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Why not? They haven't been to Europe yet. Have they? Well, the crew hasn't been to Europe.
They've been to Europe. They're in Europe too in 9.
Yeah, that was 6.
And in 9. In this one, they were in Europe.
Oh, they go to Europe in 9?
And they went to Germany in 9, I think, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Yeah,
You'll see why.
I'm trying to think. So where have they not gone?
Atlantis.
Africa. I don't think they've been to Australia.
Egypt.
They haven't been to Australia.
Shit. They haven't been to Egypt.
Ooh, a race through the pyramids?
That's it, Brandon. I think you got it. I think you solved it.
But I do think that, because to everyone's point, earlier, that they listen to the audience, and I think the audience is saying a lot of stuff we've been saying about Fast 9. So I feel like, ironically, instead of going even crazier, Ben Diesel in the studio might say, let's scale it back a little bit and go more closer to our roots and keep the story simpler, because everyone's going to expect us to do this insane stuff. But let's keep it more grounded for the finale.
Let's come back to Earth, yes, exactly. And take it to Egypt, the motherland. I can hear them now. Be family in the motherland.
I wonder if that
Roman.
I know. I wonder if that is the ticket, though. I mean, I guess by this point, right? They know who's going to see the film, so I don't think they're worried about people not seeing it. But I wonder if they're worried about letting fans down in these final 2. You know what I mean? So taking it back to family. Yeah, that's what I mean. So, kind of creating this. And I will say, I mean, that first one is why you start the journey, right? You're so entertained, you're so kind of enthralled with these characters and what they represent. That's how we got here. So, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they got back to their essence, but I do feel like now there's an expectation to go bigger because that's what we've been doing.
What if they did a Kill Bill thing though, KB? What if they did the first part of 10 is balls to the wall, insane, cuckoo bananas, and then the second part, it's more grounded, more like the first movie where it's played really, really straight. I feel like that's the way they could have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
we had We have an audience question, and it is, which actor would you want to see in the franchise?
Oh, that has not been previously. Is that what?
Yeah, that has not been cast. What actor would you bring into the franchise? First person that jumped in my head is Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill.
He's a nerd, and Vin Diesel is a nerd. And then you would have because if you make his character nerdy, and then I think he would be great with Tej.
No? Oh, so you want to see him like with glasses and like
I want to see him nerdy.
Like you don't. Yes. Yeah, I was gonna say you want to see him play a nerd. Okay.
Computer whiz.
That's a tough one.
How about a car designer?
I haven't really thought about that, to be honest.
Oh, man.
I'd love to see Denzel pop up as like the big bad behind the Idris program from Hobbs and Shaw. That'd be awesome. Because it's like a role where you don't have to fight, but you could be intimidating and Denzel very rarely plays a villain. And I feel like the franchise would pay him enough money where he actually might do it if he's only going to be on set for like 3 days.
I'm drawing a complete blank on this.
I am too. And I know, you know what? I'm definitely going to say I would love to see a, brown skinned Black woman kind of.
You said Viola before.
This. And, who's like a really great actress that might have fun? And I would probably like to see her because she's mostly in like serious things. But this would be lighthearted for her, and I don't know where she will work, but I can see it a little bit. Ingenue Ellis, like we could toss her in here, and she can finally have just a lighthearted good time. Because I feel like she is always in such heavy content. Like, just toss her in a fast movie. Let her be like, Operation something. Let her be a boss, but she can also tell jokes. Like, give her some, just give her something a little bit lighthearted, not too crazy.
In that similar vein, I've been throwing Taraji in there. Get us a baby boy reunion.
Yes.
I would really like that. And she does action movies too.
I was just thinking Nicole Bahari would be great too.
Yes. Yeah, Nicole would be a good fit.
We haven't seen her in any type of like action film or anything like that, right? She would be great.
Yes. Yeah, so, switch it up a little bit.
Michelle Yeoh, I put her in anything.
Yeah.
Jonesy is still like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
He's just over there squirming in his chair.
Oh, Denai Guerrero. That's what I want.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. She's awesome.
I mean, I feel like bringing in the name cachet from The Walking Dead and Black Panther and giving her action chops, I feel like she would probably be one of. If you said she was going to be in the next one, I'd be super excited just based on what she's done previously.
For sure.
I'm so proud of like her career, man. Like, I know I don't want to go too far up, but just knowing where she started and like that she was able to use The Walking Dead to catapult to Marvel, and like she was able to literally be like, I don't want to do Walking Dead anymore. Like, I want to focus on other things, and have the ability to do that as a Black actress. I mean, phenomenal.
Our next question is, what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite quote?
Oh, yes. Inch or a mile, winning is winning. Ask any racer, Vin Diesel, he said in the first one. It's when Paul Walker said, dude, I almost had you.
Yeah.
Had me? You never even had your car.
Yeah.
Ask any racer, any real. I love that line.
They were so young. Like, so young.
So young. Those were some days. Mine is definitely has got to be I live my life a quarter mile at a time. I know we make fun of that line, but the context of that entire that line, like when he talks about what happened to his dad and the anger that he felt and like the regret that he felt for beating up that man, and like for me that line represents his remorse, and he's like, I'm gonna make every moment and every mile and every quarter mile count, because like I know what I can lose. I know what it is to lose my freedom. And he's like, I'm gonna make this quarter mile count. It's gonna be a short distance, but I'm gonna go full throttle the entire way. And I just love that line. I think it encapsulates Dom as a character, but I think the franchise as well too. They're like, we're gonna make every second of this film count. We're gonna make every action scene count. We're gonna make the whole idea of family count. We're gonna just like make sure that we get as much into it as they can, which I respect. and just like Vin Diesel can act his ass off. I don't care what anyone says, and that's one of the best scenes in the franchise.
I'm gonna go with Han when he said, "Life's simple. Like you make choices and you don't look back. Like just keep pressing ahead." Look at Han.
Yeah,
I'm so glad he's back.
I'm going with my favorite Tyrese quote, my favorite Roman quote, where he says in Fast 6, it's like we're hunting our evil twins, because like that's what I thought when I saw the bad crew, and then he was looking at the screen like, "Yo, like what are we doing?"
Yeah. Oh, good old comic relief, Roman.
Joe, do you have one?
Your quotes are also deep, and the only one I can think of is the one that basically had me on the floor in Hobbs and Shaw, where he's at the airport, and the guy at the airport like looks at his ID and is like, "Mike Coxmall?" And The Rock says, I go by Michael. That's, I don't know, it's, you know, in comparison to your quotes, a little shallow, but my wife was actually, I was listening with earphones on, and I couldn't stop laughing. My wife was like, "Are you okay?" Yeah.
No. And the next question is there a car you want to see in the series that hasn't shown up yet?
A 1992 Toyota Escort, because that's the car I had in high school.
Nostalgia.
I'd like to see personal representation in these movies.
For me, it's an Aston Martin. I don't think we've seen an Aston Martin.
I was just thinking that. The only reason I didn't want to say it is because it's a James Bond car.
No, but
I just didn't want it to crossover. It is.
Maybe we'll get a Bond crossover either way.
But aren't these films kind of like Bond films that when you think about it? We get the women dancing in bikinis in casinos and clubs. You got Han and Giselle hooking up like Bond and Thing hooks up, and then we got the comic relief. We have the villains I had said, and when I was doing my tweet when I was watching it, film 2 kind of reminds me of Moonraker and Live and Let Die, like those 70s. I felt like John Singleton was inspired by 70s Bond films, and when you kind of look at it, that film kind of inspired the structure of the other films to follow. So like you kind of got your Bond, you kind of already have Bond sensibilities.
How old is Daniel?
I always thought of it. Oh, he's old.
How old is he?
I'm thinking about, could he be the Shaw's father? We haven't seen the father yet.
Who?
Oh, right. The
Shaw.
We haven't seen Deckard Shaw and the brother that we have, and the sister. We haven't seen their father. So I'm wondering, we could put Daniel Craig in there, but I don't know if he's.
I don't think he's
too
young.
He's
probably the same age, if not. I don't think he's that much older than Jason Statham.
Man, she could be a cougar. Helen Mirren could be a cougar.
No. I mean his age in relation to Jason Statham.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Helen Mirren. Yes.
Who would I put as her? Who? I'm trying to think of.
I don't know. I kind of feel like they might go like it would probably likely go to like Pierce Brosnan if they were gonna.
That's a good one.
That'd be
a good one. And so you get the Bond crossover. That's a good one. I like that.
Look at us. We're just giving Universal all the good ideas.
Universal, listen to us and
please.
Make these things happen.
Please. Everything except the dinosaurs. Our next question is, what director do you want to see tackle a Fast and Furious movie? This is the final question.
Ryan Coogler. I want to see him do one.
If you want to go the acclaim route, go with Jonesy, Ryan Coogler. I would go with Michael Bay. Michael Bay is so insane with his car chases, especially when I think about Bad Boys 2.
Bad Boys.
I'm just like, I would love to see what he does with these characters. It's probably going to be a trash movie because that's usually what Michael Bay does.
What was the Netflix movie he did with Ryan Reynolds?
Underground 6. Oh, that was that was bad.
Right. That feeling you just had. That. Hold on to that.
Didn't he use a magnet in that movie too?
I don't know.
Ooh. I'm drawing a blank. I'm thinking I would love to see a woman direct.
That'd be dope. Actually get some good written scenes for the female characters.
Please, finally.
Well, I mean,
Oh, no,
and
so
we'll also
I
hopefully lean into the writer's room as
I
well.
hear you all say that, but I'm thinking about like Six. Had some great scenes with Gal Gadot and Gina Carano and all that. So like they had really great action scenes. They had really fun. No, I think in terms of that. So for me, in terms of what you all were talking about, Six was the pinnacle of having a lot of women on screen, giving them really good action scenes, giving them a lot of good lines that had nothing to do with the dudes in their lives. But that's just me.
But then they negated that in 7 with the weird Michelle Rodriguez and
hey, listen.
and what's her name, the famous UCF
Ramsey?
fighter. Yeah, I hate the fight. I'm like, what's going on right now?
I was like, yeah, imagine, kind of first off waiting 6 films to get that, right? And then getting that in the 6th film, then completely erasing all of that for 7, 8, and 9. Like,
I just had my idea for female directors: Nia DaCosta or Gina Prince Bythewood.
Okay.
Gina Prince Bythewood can do action. We saw Old Guard.
Yeah, I mean, she has worked with Charlize.
Let's see what she can do with
and
cars.
She's doing the 2nd one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Joe, is there anyone you can think of from like your experience in the industry?
A director I kind of really like who surprised me, and I haven't seen his recent film, was Gareth Evans in a movie called The Raid.
Yes.
And he does such inventive fight sequences. I would love to see him do those inventive fight sequences, take that to like the Fast and Furious, but also envision his, inspired car chase sequences.
I appreciate that suggestion, Joseph. The only issue is that American actors just can't do that fight choreography. Like they just don't have the training to pull it off. I think that's why movies like The Raid have completely ruined me for action scenes with fight scenes.
Okay, so I'll give you the caveat with American directors, because you have Chaz Stahelski, who does the
John Wick movies,
John Wick films.
Yep.
He understands action, and he understands how to choreograph action and tell a story with action. Gareth Evans, like the Raid series, is like some of my favorites. And then of course he did the series, the Gangs of London series, which the fight sequences in that are amazing. And because he like the fight styles are very utilitarian. If you take the fight styles, because they did a lot of Southeast Asian, like Salat, and for that, and you have characters like Dom, who is like a brute force fighter. That would be amazing. And then if you bring back, did Joe Taslim die? I don't know. Just gonna bring my guys from the Raid series. Gonna bring Yaya and Mateen. Bring Iko US. Like bring all of those guys in. Like Mark Dacascos. He died in John Wick.
Oh, Mark, yeah.
Put him in the franchise. He'd be amazing.
I was gonna say you could go the co-director route too, and if you're looking for big names who know action, the Russo brothers, maybe they want to get into cars, and maybe they want to change it. I'm not saying they're my personal preference, but I'm like, if they're looking for big names of people who have worked in these types of budgets, though, and can do crazy things on screen, then like,
and they can work with big egos too.
This is true. So we have one final question. So apparently this is a question that was asked earlier, but we didn't get a chance to get into it. Out of all the villains in the franchise, all this is including 9, which one is your favorite villain?
I think we all agree it's Mr. Nobody.
Yeah, Mr. Nobody's he's the big bad.
He's a villain then, definitely.
We're calling it now. You heard it here first.
Yeah, it's definitely not Cypher. Like in Fast 9, like her scenes the entire time, like it's not a spoiler, but they keep her in a glass box for most of the movie. And I was just like,
literally,
what? Like
a glass case of emotion.
Exactly. There's no toilet in there. There's no slot for getting food. I was just like, what's going on in this place? So yeah, it kind of killed the seriousness of her character to know that she could be caught up like that. Yeah, even in 6, like they turned that villain into an ally because it's the Shaw.
I like the Shaws.
Yeah, I was gonna say
when the Shaws were villains, I like them.
Yeah, they started off being compelling, and now it's just like,
they're just like
family.
So Mr. Nobody is our is our big bad. And I think that's it. So when we wrap up, is there any last thoughts you guys would like to say about the franchise? And then you can tell everyone where they can find your work and find your social media.
I'll just say, I mean, I agree with what Brandon said and what KB Jonesy, you guys all said that. Hopefully the next movie, they kind of ground it a little more, because as the movies get crazier and crazier, I kind of lose a sense of stakes for me, and it becomes kind of unreal. The characters always ground me, but I really hope they go back to their roots. P.S. Baron Destructo on Twitter.
Yeah, listen, I feel like watch the franchise if you just want to see the unthinkable, over the top kind of action sequences and just the most ridiculous things you'll ever see on screen, using cars and people who never get hurt. But also with underlying themes that you're like, oh, okay, I'm invested in this and I'm invested in the family. And I honestly can't wait for the last two. Like, again, I told someone when I was doing my review, like, I went into Fast 9 knowing exactly what I wanted out of it. So I had a good time because I knew what to expect. And so, I didn't go into it for the dramatic acting. Like, I knew that's not what I was going to get in this film. But I did get comedy and I did get action. And so, I feel like people should check it out. But if you would like to check me out on social media, I'm only on Twitter and Instagram at TheLadyKB, TheLadyKayb. You can check out all my content on Through the Lens of Lady KB on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I mean, this franchise is dope. Like, it's had some hits and misses, but that's going to happen when you have 10 plus entries. And I'm going to say 11 because I'm including Better Luck Tomorrow and Hobbs and Shaw in this. Like, that's all canon. So, like, include it in that. I really hope that they stick the landing with the ending. I have confidence that they can. But at the same time, I also know that they might go so far off the grid that everyone's just watching it like, I can suspend disbelief, but this is ridiculous. Because I feel like that's what happened in the audiences for Fast 9. A lot of times people were like, kind of like, oh my God, and they started groaning. And I was like, that's not ideal. But I still love this franchise. I still think it's a standard for like inclusivity, diversity in regards to international casts. But yeah, if you want to hear our my full review on Fast 9, you can check out my podcast, Medium Popcorn Podcast, on all podcast platforms or Rotten Tomatoes. You can also follow me at American Collins, AmericanCollins.com. I got shows in New York City, so if you're in the area, come hang out with me. We'll talk about movies and my theories for Fast 10.
I really don't have anything to add. I think that everyone has said great stuff about the series so far. I just think that I'm here for the characters, and I just would love to see how they all end up, more so than what they end up doing with the action. So,
what if they show all their deaths like 6 feet?
Don't.
Like, just at the very last 10 minutes, they just show how everyone in the crew finally dies.
No, don't do that. I barely survived episodes. I barely survived 7. Let me tell you something. When I saw 7 in the cinema, no, like, everyone was crying. Wait, like, you talked about the song. That song gets me choked up every time I hear it. It doesn't matter if I'm in the supermarket or whatever. I hear that and I get emotional. I get choked up. Like, that was honestly, I think that's one of the best moments in the franchise too. Like, they put so much respect and thought into that finale. Like, kudos to them for pulling it off. But yeah, no, please, Brandon, why would you say that? No.
I was like, Brandon, why would you end on that note?
I'm sorry. Sometimes I go down these dark roads and people got
everyone is gonna be living together, like the final scene is gonna be everybody at this big barbecue having the time of their life.
Everybody's saying great. Everyone's gonna live literally every film is them at the barbecue.
But it's gonna be ended with the kids that are there now grown up with their own kids playing with like toy cars, and that's the new generation.
So wait, I have a question for you all then. So you can find me Aster Jonesius, and you can follow my work on lrmonline.com. But I do want to ask you all this just very quickly. What do you think they're going to do with Brian at the end of the series?
Oh yeah, because he's not in 9, right? They might have I think they might kill him off screen.
You gotta see it. to know like how they reference Brian, but I honestly think that they might kill him off.
I think they're going to kill him
so.
off.
I think they might kill him off. My
I don't think
co-host thinks that they're going
do
to kill off Hobbs, like, but they got to kill somebody off, right?
I don't think they're going to kill him off because Vin Diesel was interviewed and he said it's important to keep his character alive in the series. And the fact that he publicly said that, I think, kind of curtails a possibility. Even if he changes his mind, the fact that he publicly stated it, I think it's hard to kind of backtrack.
Okay,
he also said that he thinks Paul
so then
Walker
if my theory where they ended up with like everyone, like the crew is older, they have the kids now and then, like younger kids, maybe they might just have someone standing off in the distance and that's supposed to be Brian talking to Dom. I'm thinking that's how it is. Like the two of them are standing off in the distance talking. You don't see his face clearly, but it's just representative of Brian.
The character though, Brian's ride or die since movie 1, right? So for him to be on the sidelines for the past 2 movies, it just makes it awkward because it's like he wouldn't let his wife go and not be
Well, the fact that Mia was involved and he wasn't is the big bump for me. I mean, I buy the fact that he's got the family and he made the promise he's not going to risk his life anymore because he's got the son, although now Toretto has the son and kids ruin everything. But the fact that he made that promise, I buy up until the fact Mia shows up in 9.
And we're all like, who's watching these children? Like everyone's like, okay.
They have nannies. I think that's it. For me, everyone, you can find me on social media, Twitter and Instagram at CarrieCNH12. That's CarrieCNH12. You can find my writing and all of my stuff linked to my Linktree account on my Twitter and on my YouTube channel. You can find me there under my name, and with KB, we do interviews for AFCA. You can find our interviews for AFCA there and on the AFCA site. And my writing is on the butwhythepodcast.com site. That is the site hosting this live. Is it? What we say? What live stream? Live stream?
Yeah, so
live stream. Yeah.
And Brandon and Jonesy join our join our AFCA roundtables too.
Yes, and if you're into K-pop, you can follow me and Joe because we do our top 10 monthly K-pop list, and that's everyone. This has been so much fun. I hope you guys who are watching, who are going to watch afterwards, enjoy this. And when it comes to Fast and Furious, just go along for the ride. That's it. Buckle in or not, because Dom doesn't seem to believe in seatbelts. But if you're like with KB, if you ride with him, you'll make it out without a scratch, even if you fall through a windshield. And on that note, we will end, everyone. Hey, bye.
See ya.